Look, I'm not saying that the Danes are picky, but when they visit the UK, they suffer. Not because they're dramatic, but because some things in the UK just don't really make that much sense to a Danish mind. Let's talk about 10 things that drive Danes crazy when visiting the UK. Hi everyone, I'm Elena, a senior data scientist in the Bank of England and a former resident of Denmark who spent 5 years mastering Hygge before moving to the land of lukewarm pints. After 4.5 years in the UK, I have seen what drives Danes crazy. If you're Danish, prepare to nod aggressively. If you're British, consider this: free consultancy. And if you like brutally honest takes with a side of wit, hit subscribe. The public transport chaos. Danes love efficiency. Public transport in Denmark is simple. Tap your card, hop on a clean, spacious train, enjoy the ride. Then they come to the UK and suddenly, bam, they're in a survival game. First, the tube. Why is it so hot? It's like stepping into a furnace in July. Basically doesn't even have any air conditioning. The Circle line should come with a health warning. Then there's the ticketing system. Oyster, contactless, paper tickets. The wrong choice can cost you double. And if you end up on national rail instead of the tube, congratulations, you just paid £15 for a 15-minute ride. And let's not forget buses. In Denmark, buses arrive on time. And you know exactly where they're going. In London, it's like a lucky dip. The same bus route can take completely different streets based on some mystery factor. You think you're heading to your destination, and suddenly you're in some random part of East London, questioning your life choices. Super weak coffee. Imagine you're a Dane. Or maybe you are a Dane. You wake up in your UK hotel, eager to start the day. You grab a cup of coffee. You take a sip, and it tastes like water that once upon a time had a brief conversation with a coffee bean. Danes drink strong coffee. They need it. It fuels their cold, dark winters and keeps them productive. British coffee, though? It's either instant coffee that tastes of regret, or a filter coffee so weak you could see through it. And before you say, just go to a cafe, let's be real. Half the cafes serve the same bland stuff, just in a fancier cup and maybe with oat milk. If you want real coffee in London, you're going to have to track down some obscure, hipster-run specialty cafe. And even then, you're still paying £450 for something that still isn't quite up to Danish standards. Really a tragedy. There are no decent pastries. Speaking of breakfast disappointments, let's talk about pastries. Denmark is the home of wienerbrød, flaky, buttery, delicious. A proper Danish pastry is an experience, that's why they call it Danish. It has layers and complexity, a satisfying weight to it. Then they come to the UK and what do they get? A Greg sausage roll? A sad, lifeless croissant that crumbles into dust the moment you bite into it? A cinnamon roll that tastes like sugar and despair? Even in fancy bakeries, the pastry situation is questionable. Danish pastries in the UK are usually some weird, icing-covered abomination with none of the depth or flavor of the real thing. Danes don't just prefer their pastries, they respect them. In the UK, it simply just does not pass the test. The lack of directness, this one is personal. Danes are very direct. If they don't like something, they'll just say it. If they disagree, they'll tell you. It's not rude, it's just efficient. Then they visit the UK and suddenly nothing means what it actually means. A Brit says, that's interesting, and a Dane thinks, oh, they like my idea. But no, that's interesting actually means that's the worst idea that I've ever heard, but I'm just too polite to say it. Danes love clarity, Brits love vagueness. If a Danish person asks a Brit for feedback, the Brit might say, it's not bad, but could it be slightly different? Which to a Dane translates to, oh, it's fine. But in reality, the person actually meant, this is awful, never show it to anyone. Even something as simple as making plans is exhausting. We should grab a coffee sometime. Sounds like an invitation to a Dane. But no, it's just a meaningless social nicety. Danes don't do fake politeness. They just want to know where they stand. And in the UK, good luck with that. Tiny, overpriced hotel rooms and carpeted bathrooms? You've spent a small fortune on a hotel room in the UK. You walk in and immediately regret everything. The room is the size of a storage closet. There's barely any natural light. And the bed, it feels like it was designed to just punish you. But you're like, fine, maybe I'll cope. And then you walk into the bathroom. And what do you see? A carpet. A carpet in the bathroom. Why? What kind of medieval hygiene system is this? Danish bathrooms are sleek, clean, and practical. There are rules about hygiene. In the UK, you're standing in a tiny, poorly ventilated space, looking at a floor that has probably absorbed years of questionable bathroom decisions. Even expensive hotel rooms are not immune to this. You could pay £300 for a single night and still get a room where you can hear every single footstep in the hallway. And the air conditioning is just a tiny little fan placed next to your bed. And no, a tiny kettle and some sad instant coffee is not going to make up for it. Denmark has spoiled the Danes with quality, and the UK, It just hasn't. Next up, the UK's idea of bacon. Danes take their bacon seriously. There's actually more pigs than people in Denmark. It's crispy, flavorful, and has actual substance. Then they come to the UK, order a bacon sandwich, take one bite, and immediately enter a state of an existential crisis. Bacon is actually one of the things I miss most about Denmark. Also salty licorice. UK bacon is just floppy. It's like somebody tried to cook it but then changed their mind halfway through it. It's chewy, it's sad, and worst of all, sometimes it's served boiled. Who does that? Who looks at bacon and thinks, let's take away everything good about this? In Denmark, bacon is a national treasure. In the UK, it feels like a punishment. And let's not even talk about the bacon that you get in some of those supermarkets and some pre-made sandwiches. It's cold and has the texture of regret. Recycling? What recycling? Danes are used to recycling everything. Paper, glass, metal, plastic. They have a perfectly color-coded system. Then they come to the UK, try to throw away a plastic bottle, and then realize no one knows where anything goes. One bin says general waste, another bin says mixed recycling, and then there's one for food waste, but that one is just sometimes always disappearing for some reason. Meanwhile, Danes are out there clutching their empty plastic bottle like it's some sort of a moral dilemma. Do I put it here? Is it going to be recycled if it's here? Will I be arrested for doing it wrong? Don't even get me started on the biking infrastructure. It's basically non-existent. Danes arrive in London thinking that they can cycle through the city like they do in Copenhagen, relaxing, safe, smooth. Here, cycling feels like a death wish. If you want the full rant, go check out the other video on that, because trust me, it is a journey. People still talking about their university 10 years later. In Denmark, nobody cares about where you went to university once you graduate. You got your degree? Great. Move on with your life. But in the UK? Oh no, here some universities are your whole personality. I've had grown adults, fully employed, mortgage-paying adults, casually drop, well, when I was in Oxford in a conversation. Sir, you graduated in 2006. We're talking about coffee. Why is this relevant? And it's not just the Oxbridge people. Everyone in the UK feels the need to clarify where they went. Oh, I went to uni in Manchester. Okay, and? Are you legally required to disclose that? Because in Denmark, nobody asks, nobody cares. Your degree is a means to an end, not an eternal badge of honor. Danes hear this and just stare. Light switches in the wrong places. Imagine you're a Dane visiting the UK, staying at a charming Airbnb. You walk into the bathroom, close the door, go to turn the light, and realize that the actual light switch is outside of the room. Why? What kind of a prank is this? Who decided that the best place for a light switch is not inside the room where you're actually in? In Denmark, the light switch is exactly where it should be. Inside the room where a rational person would put it. But in the UK, oh no. Here, bathrooms are a psychological test. Being called mate or love by total strangers. Brits are friendly. Too friendly for Danes. In Denmark, you don't randomly address strangers with affectionate nicknames. Then you visit the UK, try to buy a sandwich, and suddenly the cashier is calling you love or darling. Danes hear this and immediately think, what? Are we married now? Because back home in Denmark, if somebody calls you something affectionate, it's a big deal. But here, you'll be called mate, love, sweetheart, boss, duck, by strangers who don't even know your name. And it's not just shop workers. Taxi drivers, bartenders, random people in the street. It's like a game the Brits are playing to see how much they can just confuse the foreigners. If you want to hear my full rant on this and some other baffling customs, check out my other video where I break them down in details. You will not be disappointed. So there you have it. 10 things that make Danes question their life choices when visiting the UK. If you're Danish, let me know which of these you've suffered through. And if you're British, tell me, are you guilty of any of these crimes? And hey, if you like this, why not stick around? Hit that subscribe button. I promise my content is way stronger than British coffee. Have a good day. Bye!